Cold chill up your spine, you'll get your ass moving, son. We're burning daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burning Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Well, howdy there, daylight burners. We got a East Coaster on the show today. Returning. Is this the second time we've done this, or
second time?
All right, Dan Given out of West Virginia. You're an interesting fella, my man. I've really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit. Most of all, like West Virginia is another one of those like kind of I got a soft spot for. Like kind of like the Okies, you know, they catch a lot of shit, but everybody that I've met from West Virginia is really cool. Like some of the best music in the world comes out of there. Yeah. Same as Oklahoma. Some of the best storytelling, like that whole Appalachia region is just, that's like the Western U.S., but smack dab in the Eastern U.S. They're kind of the same culture.
You don't want to say too many good things about us. Between you and Tim Pool on Timcast or whatever, West Virginia, for the first time, we lost the congressional district from the last census, so we're down to 2. But for the first time that I remember or know of, West Virginia's population's growing, and I'm starting to see for the first time ever New York and California plates running through like local roads, and I'm like, here we go, because they declared the a national park nearby us, and you just see all these you know those Mercedes transporter vans or whatever people camp like out of,
Sprinter vans or whatever.
Vans. Dude, they are polluting that area, and real estate is just started to go sky high. So hopefully they don't ruin it. People talking good about our state. We need to get back to just, man, they're all inbred and hicks, and
I know, and just like you don't go out in the woods at night because you might get shot if you stumble across a still. You know, like that whole that's kind of like see, most of Nevada is like that, where just like nobody really wants to go out there. There's not much to do, but I fucking love rural Nevada. Like it just, I think it's the coolest place in the like governing wise. Like Nevada's one of the coolest states in the country, because it is so just like, man, build a fence so my cows don't get into your hay. Like that's kind of the rule of thumb around here, is like, if you don't want my cows in your shit, build a fence around it.
Yeah we had we've pretty much, just because feed prices are so high, we had a bunch of hogs that we were also feeding out, and we pretty much got rid of that. But we had there was this one hog, and she had these piglets, because we were farrowing them and everything, and they got loose, and they recently made this railroad that ran down in the valley by our farm, which intersects like a corner of our farm into a big rails to trails, so they tore up all the track and then made it really smooth. Like, I don't know what kind of material that is, but it's really smooth, and you can ride your horse or bike or run or do whatever on it. And I could not keep this pig in. It would get out and take all its piglets and go hang out by this rails to trails. And we finally, and it was a pig that was like scared of humans. It wanted to just tear off. And I started to get we got these complaints from the Rails to Trails Authority, like, this pig is like chasing people and running them off. I'm like, that doesn't sound like this pig, And so we did finally catch it, and it's turned into bacon, that mama did. But it was just really funny, because there's just this like railroad track that just slices the corner of our farm, and we own land on both sides of it. And I knew where that pig was, and it was never on the trail. When I'd go down there and see it, was never on the trail. And it was just funny because like who are these people worried about this pig that is terrified of humans and was hiding out? Like, they probably just saw the pig and were freaking out, but it's like there never used to be people there at all. And now all of a sudden there's people there and there's new complaints and they don't like this or that. And I'm like, been here longer and I just don't really care what you think. But anyhow, this pig, man, it was wild. It was the wildest thing. Catching that thing, getting that loaded up and to slaughter, I was happy to see her go. It was a red pig, and I started calling it the devil pig from Streets of was it Street? No, that was the last McMurtry novel.
Oh,
was that Streets of Laredo?
I think so, maybe.
I get the titles confused. Streets of Laredo and Dead Man's Walk. I think it was Streets of Laredo, and they called it Devil Pig.
Yeah, something like that.
Man, it was.
I'm under the impression that McMurtry should have just stopped at Lonesome Dove. Like, he didn't need. I mean, not that the other novels weren't okay, like, because they were okay, but
Comanche Moon, did he write? I know that's a prequel. Did he write that one after?
Yeah. So he wrote Lonesome Dove, and then I think he wrote Streets of Laredo, and then he went back and wrote Comanche Moon and Dead Man's Walk, which are both prequels.
I mean, Comanche Moon, though, I haven't read Dead Man's Walk, but I thought Comanche Moon was awesome. I really liked it.
Yeah.
Streets of Laredo is just downright depressing.
Yeah, it is. Maybe that's why it's good. I don't know. Is because it's just kind of real.
I like Streets of Laredo. I loved it. Like, I listened to it this summer when we were putting up hay in the tractor. I don't know. I got the cab tractor, I make the high school boys with the open cab. So,
Well, yeah, you're a capitalist.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. So I listened to that whole thing putting up hay, and I was like, you're at the edge of your seat while you're running around in circles. But it was a really good one because I had read Comanche Moon and, of course, Lonesome Dove, and those are just I mean, those are masterpieces, I thought. But Streets of Laredo, you've got to keep the scotch and the pistol away from yourself.
Yeah, no kidding. Dead Man's Walk was all right. Comanche Moon was really good. I'll say that was good. Streets of Laredo, like you said, it's depressing, but and then Lonesome Dove. I mean, it is really incredible how well they did on the miniseries, but man, the book is just far superior. Like there's just
absolutely. Yeah.
It's man, just like and it's funny when you talk to people that have read it and what their favorite part of the book that doesn't get in the movie. Like, I remember talking to a guy, his favorite little thing that he from the book was how Dish got his name because he was so. And they tried to kind of recreate that, but they never did really like explain it in the show. But yeah, it was because he was so thirsty that he went and started drinking the dishwater when he got back to the wagon, and so he's dishwater boggett. And but there's like the whole buffalo heifer scenario with Newt, like the how she just like started to wash him off, and he was like blew his load. Like that's the the part that makes the book so much better. And just like you laugh your ass off on that.
Oh yeah, I mean, there were some parts there and I think one of the things that, and I've told a few people like this, and I think it's really true. I think Larry McMurtry, in particularly those books, and have you read the Wayne? The Wayne series books? What was it?
Yeah, there was like a Last Picture Show.
Yeah, the Last Picture Show, and then I've read all of the series except one. I read Rhino Ranch.
Yeah.
And, he does such a good job. It's kind of weird, but I'm like, damn, he really knows men. Like,
yeah,
I know he is one, but he captures it well in the book of how men think and act. I'm like, damn, it's so real. And
yeah, he was an incredible author. He just passed away here last year.
Yeah,
I was really like, I was kind of working up the courage to try to get in touch with that guy. Like there's not many people where my theory on all of this kind of podcast and stuff is like the worst thing they can do is say no.
Yeah.
Pretty well for me, but I was like, man, Larry McMurtry, like that's one I'm gonna have to. I kept thinking, I was like, I'm gonna have to have my shit together. Like I'm gonna have to go back and read some of them. And it turns out I ran out of time, and I should have just like asked, reached out. But
they say just go for it. I mean, I don't think Joe Rogan reads all the books of the authors he has on. I promise you.
No, I know we don't. But there's some like we're like that. Like with like I'd have to do some refresher courses if to talk to Larry McMurtry, because I mean that's just man, he's one of the best of the last 100 years. He's and I don't know, just an incredible writer.
There was I forget her name, but I was talking about I think the Wayne's like the Last Picture Show and Rhino Ranch, and there was another one I read. I think I haven't read one of the books, but I said there was like a psychologist or psychiatrist, and I was like, she was female, and she was talking about men or whatever, how they think. I was like, you want to know how they think? Read Larry McMurtry books, because it does a good job explaining how men think and this the stupid stuff or why we do what we do and all this. And I was like, it's weird because when I read some of those books, I'm like, I do think like that, don't I? I would probably do that, and especially in the books about Wayne, because it's more modern, so you can relate a little bit more. But I'm like, son of a gun.
Well, and Cormac McCarthy too. I know I'm like late to the party on Cormac McCarthy and all the pretty horses.
All the pretty horses? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's that whole series, and I've just I read well, I didn't even read it. I just listened to it, but I have. Where is it? Yeah, I have it. The Border trilogy, All the Pretty Horses, The Crossing, and Cities of the Plain. And I listened to All the Pretty Horses the other day, and like I said, I know I'm way late to the party, but that fucking fantastic novel, man.
Yeah,
it is incredible. But and there's sometimes, like, especially with the way the world is so like whirlwind nowadays, it's good to just like, whether you're putting up hay or riding pins or something, just put on a good novel and just take your mind out of, or take your mind somewhere besides all the nastiness going on. Like, I
tell you what, and I like to listen to some political podcasts, and actually on the drive up here from Maine, it's a 13-hour drive for me to come up here. And I guess no one actually knows what I'm talking about, but
we were gonna bring that up, but anyway, so Dan's up in Maine. He's from West Virginia, but he's up in Maine.
I'm up here visiting some family and doing some brief business stuff. But on the way up, I was listening, of course, to your podcast, catching up on what you and Aaron have been talking to, which were, man, I forget the last episode. You had me laughing out loud in the car. I was just like,
I was hoping so. That one felt like a good one.
Oh man, it was hilarious. And I gotta say, like, there's something satisfying about listening to that podcast driving through New England, where and
a gash is a gash. That Aaron texted that to me a couple different times.
that when you were talking about that, I was like, what have we come to?
It was just like, my God, the reasoning behind like trying to rationalize that Jesus was trans. Like, all right, so I get, like, in a weird way, I get why they would do that nowadays, because that's everything is trans now. So I understand kind of where they're coming from, but the reasoning was because the spear wound was shaped like a vagina. That made him trans. And I'm like, I just kept picturing that German, stabbing the dude and Saving Private Ryan. You're a trans now.
Yeah, I mean, I just, like, you have to be like on drugs to come up with that or something. Like, I don't know.
And like, not good drugs either.
Not even good. It's not even clever, It's just,
so like going back to the novel deal, that one, I can't remember what it was. John Armour was like a true crime novel. I forget the other Jonathan Woods. Now that one, I'm sure he was on some good weed when he was writing his his like pig novel where the feral hogs like became like humanoids, like that.
Yeah,
that was interesting. Like that's some good drugs, but where you're just like, Jesus is trans because a knife wound looks kind of like a vagina.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
I mean, like that's a stretch to be the most generous. Like that's a stretch.
I mean, honestly, like, and this is what I don't think happens enough. And it's like, I was telling my aunt and uncle up here, we were talking about some stuff, and I was like, yeah, so now there's these kids in school systems that are called furries, and apparently they like have a litter box for these kids in some of these schools.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, that doesn't happen. I was like, well, actually, I know of a school that has that now, and you can watch the school board meeting of them discussing it. I'm like, that, and like, that is the moment where I don't believe I have the non-aggressionism principle. So Aaron can, God, he would be a libertarian, but that's when you need to just slap the kid in the face and be like, shut up and go sit down.
See, that's where like there's a lot of the libertarian types that are like, peaceful parenting, like where you don't spank your kids, and I'm like, no, at some point, like if you got a 13-year-old boy that calls his mom a bitch, you backhand him right across the fucking mouth, and you put him in his place, and you end that shit right there.
Yeah, like, and like I got whipped by a belt, from my dad, and I mean I remember twice getting whipped by the belt, and I mean I think the last time it was like, okay, well this is now ineffective. But and that's when you start to move towards taking away stuff they like or grounding or whatever. But these kids, I mean, they're like, what are they, like 14, 16 years old, and they just dress like a little freaking furry little animal thing, and then they expect, I mean, what are we doing? The problem is this stupid behavior should have never been accommodated. Yeah, it should have never been accommodated. And it's like with a lot of this stuff in society, it should have never been allowed. It should have been mocked and ridiculed. And when the guy came to whatever professor, if the professor had any sense, saying, yeah, I think Jesus was trans because of this wound, he should have been like, shut up, like get out of here, like
go smack yourself in the face,
go work at a convenience store, and
and go feel bad for a little while. Like you should feel bad about yourself
for shame
at least a couple hours, like it doesn't have to be a lifelong thing, but go think about how dumb that was. All right.
And I don't think there's enough of that going on where, no, that's a stupid idea, shut up and go home,
Yeah, like I've always said, like, and particularly my boy, I've said this since I was, I don't know, like 18, 20 years old. Like when I have kids, like, and if my boy just like, for whatever, I'm at a point where like I've lost, I've lost it with him. And I was like, whatever, you go dig a hole, and the next time I'm at that point, you go back out there and you fill that hole back in. Yeah. Like you just go dig a big ass hole, and then the next time you fuck up, you go fill it back in, and it's got to be perfectly level. Like you go, you be just like, you be as like nitpicky as you possibly can be about it. Yeah,
and, just be like, the hole has to be as deep as the shovel and as wide as the shovel, like in that movie Holes, or
the holes, and
just be like, that's what it has to be. And then oh man, that would be, boy, I bet you would have your kids taken away from you if someone found out about that.
I'm sure.
God, it's so ridiculous.
And that's why I'll always live in a part of the world where there's not enough people around. And if the neighbors hear it, they'll be like, hey, hey, you listen up, you little fuck. Next time you you mess up, I'm sending you down to McKinley's house. He's gonna make you dig a hole.
I tell you what, I mean, there is some hope. I remember, so my older sister was a math teacher, was a math teacher. She's a stay-at-home mom now with a bunch of kids, but she, there was a kid that lived up down the road from us, and his dad was a Marine, and Mary Beth had him in school, and I guess I forget exactly what happened, but he acted up or didn't do his homework or anything, and man, his dad, I mean, made him come up and like apologize. He lost like his driving privileges. He had to ride the bus. He got busted, and his dad made him do like dig fence posts for like a month, and just, I mean, it was just
good man.
And it was something. Honestly, it was something like he had made a joke in Mary Beth's class, and it wasn't even like that bad. My sister was like, "Yeah, it wasn't even that bad. He's a good kid compared to most kids," but and his dad was not having it at all, especially with my sister. And so, you know, you every now and then you see a little bit of that, and you're like, okay, thank goodness, maybe there's still a few good parents out there.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, there's every now and then you see that, and it's always a welcome sight. And so like, and I noticed that, like, and I try not to be too strict on my kids, especially they're both really young, but
yeah,
I make sure they say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, and they're respectful, because that just goes so far. Like,
it does.
There's so many of these kids nowadays. I'm just like, man, if somebody would have just smacked them across the head when they were being rude, it would have, or like, I'm not big into beating your kids, but there's got to be some sort of like physical like discomfort. And so like when they're young and still, I'll flick them right in the middle of the forehead, just like pop. That ain't, so I guess it's better than, spanking them, but they still, they get a little, oh shit, that hurt.
And, I don't have any kids, so I don't really know yet. But I figure it seemed to work out pretty well for me, getting whipped every now and then when I did some really bad things. And I mean, there was a couple times I was disrespectful, and I got in trouble. I got grounded and had to go and apologize, and and that's sometimes worse than even getting physical pain, is having to go and apologize. But
I'd way rather. There's a lot of times where I'd way rather get the shit kicked out of me than I was wrong about something.
Since we're on kids, actually, I have a funny story. So we actually do have. I've got 2 high school boys that are really good, got really good kids. And honestly, one's a better mechanic than probably I'll ever be. And he did break my baler this year after I told him to not go over this one win row. But it was the last bail of the season, so I'm forgiving him. But they've really helped us out a ton, and we pay them pretty good for high school kids that age.
Yeah.
And, but then there was this other kid that, unrelated, not friends with these other 2 boys, and he was weed eating one day, and we had him weed eat around this one pond. And he and his buddy took a total of 12 hours to do the smallest pond we have on the farm. And so I was just like, what happened? So he was down at the barn, and he was working. I think my dad had him there doing something. And I told him, I was like, hey, I just wanted to make sure I understood this correctly. It took you and the other kid 12 hours to weed eat around that pond? And he was like, yeah. He said, like, no. It took us each 6 hours. I was like, okay, so 12 hours total, right? And then he like started to get like kind of, I could tell he was like, he started to get short with me. And he was like, I think he's 16. And I was just like, well, it seemed like it took a pretty long time. And the reason, I had seen them work before, and they were just goofing off most of the time and stuff. So that's why I was kind of approaching, and I kind of wanted him to be like, own up a little bit to it. And he was, he said, well, I work for your dad or something. I was like, And that's when I lost it, because I was like, no, I don't think you understand. My dad and I are partners in this. We both got financial stakes in this thing. And for the most part, I run it. And for him to say that really pissed me off. And so I told him, this is all what I told him. I said, well, if you're charging us $17.50, which by the way, we don't usually pay that, but if you're charging us $17.50 to weed eat an hour, you better work your ass off here, son. And that's all I said to him. Well, he went home and told his parents. I don't even know what he told his parents, but his dad was like, well, I need to come up and talk to you. I said, you come on up. So he came on up, and I was like, he was talking, he said, so like, you know, he told me that you cussed at him and stuff. I said, yeah. I told him for $17.50, he better work his ass off on this farm. And he said, well, do you think you can talk like to a kid like that? And I said, well, I can talk to a worker that works for me like that. And he said, well, you think you can just bully kids around? I said, let me tell you something. Your son was running his mouth off to me, and that's all I told him. He's lucky that's all that I told him. And I was like, he don't work here no more, and he won't ever work here again. And he said, well, that's fine. I wouldn't have him work here. You need to come to me when you have a problem with my son. I said, so what? Anytime he's doing anything, I need to call you up? Like, and it was just crazy, because immediately these parents were like, oh, you're bullying my son because your son was being a smart ass to his boss. And anyhow, it was just one of these stories that was just, I just couldn't believe it, that, you know, just for saying that, I was in all kinds of trouble. And I was like, man, I got a lot worse told to me when I was that age. So like, he got off easy, and I didn't even say anything after that. But, you know, it's hard to find these kids, man. They just, I don't even know what to think of them like that. And
the worst part is like, they got there somehow. It ain't like, it's not really their fault, even though they're the ones being the jackass. It's still, you're just like,
well,
where the fuck are your parents on this deal, you know?
I don't know. He'd been treated with kids' gloves, and I mean, I didn't really like him working. I had Dad and I had talked about not having him come around, because I was like, look, he's not worth the money, and, you know, he doesn't. But and then it was funny, because the other two boys that work for me on the farm a lot, we get along great, you know, and we goof off and joke, and, you know, they're hilarious. We've done some YouTube videos together, and they just have me rolling, laughing all the time. But I guess this kid's parents were down at like this little local convenience store. We're telling the convenience store owner about like how I had bullied their son or something. And then those two boys were down there, and the convenience store owner was talking about it. I guess the two workers went down there. The two boys that worked for us were down there, and we're like, no, he deserved every bit of it. We can't stand him either. So, I mean, it's just funny, you know, having these high school boys work for you, and you look at how the two boys that act really well and their parents and how they were raised, and versus other kids. But anyhow, I don't even know why I went down that road, but it just got me thinking about kids upbringing.
You know, it's fine. I get the same, you know, even when I was in college, when I had that job, poisoning prairie dogs, like, the bulk of your job was shoving newspaper down a hole, filling that hole in with dirt and tamping it down tight, so it kept all the gas in there that killed the prairie dogs. I mean, it was the most menial, unskilled manual labor you could think of.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're going to pay me, at the time, I think it started at $12 an hour. And if you made it one pay period, so 2 weeks, if you made it 2 weeks, he'd bump you up to $14 an hour. And by the time I was done, I was making like $18 an hour. In college, I was like, fucking,
that's pretty
awesome.
Good. Yeah.
And I don't have to know anything more than, like, put poison in every single hole, fill in that hole with dirt, and tamp it tight. That's all I had to know.
Yeah.
And, you know, it saved me from probably reaching 250 pounds in college, because there was plenty of jobs behind a computer or, you know, like fast food shit. But I always went to like the rural agricultural type labor. And honestly, like I probably would have been massive in college. Like I got pretty fat as it was in the winter, but like I could always know that like once it started warming up, I could go run a shovel for 12, 14 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then I'd be back at my fighting weight come the end of in the summer.
Yeah. Well, I did something similar. I worked one summer for the state road on our local county, and they have a lot of tar and chip roads. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is, but they just put down tar and gravel, loose this fine gravel. It doesn't work worth a crap. It'd be better if they just graded it dirt road and dumped gravel on it, but whatever. And the first day we went out and they had one of those I guess I can't remember how many ton dump truck it was, but I think it was a 20-ton dump truck filled with gravel. And it was me and another boy in college our freshman year, and we had to shovel that whole thing out to patch holes that day. And I tell you what, I mean, I was in shape, but I wasn't in shoveling out 10 tons of gravel in shape. And the next day, I got up and, we had to be there at like 5 a.m. or whatever. And I was like, son of a bitch, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this job. Like I'm hurt. I'm in bad shape. And then they were assigning the jobs. And luckily that day I was on the paving crew, I was hurting, but I got through it. And I was like, man, I still don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. But I was like, I didn't want to tell anyone because I was ashamed. I was like, all these other guys still showed up. So I didn't have to shovel out 10 tons of gravel today. Or I think we did two dump truck loads, so it may have been more than that. I can't remember exactly, but I made it through the first week, and then I was sore over the weekend, and then I was never sore again. And we just, if I needed to shovel out the whole dump truck myself, I'd go at it, and I wanted to prove to all the guys, because they were really, you had the permanent workers there, and they loved giving the college boys just all kinds of shit. Like we would have to pick up dead deer because there's just deer just get hit all the time in West Virginia.
Dude, I've hit 2 in the last month.
What? Jeez.
Yeah. They're getting out of hand. Like
my dad, he's like, I don't know if he's trying to hit them, but he's hit 7 in 5 years. He total. I mean, I'm like, what are you doing? But anyhow, but
I was so mad. Like the other one was just Saturday morning. Like and hit it hard enough. It deployed all. It was in the work pick and deployed all the fucking airbags and everything.
Oh man.
But like and really the only thing truly wrong with it is like it's leaking a little bit of antifreeze now. So like it's. But I'm just like I was so fucking pissed because it was like I was like 5:30 in the morning, dark. And the road bends just slightly to the right and dips right there. And this doe was like laying in the road, and I didn't see her until like she stood up. And then I was like, by that point I was like, oh, son of a bitch, boom, just like and then there's airbags and I don't know if you ever had the airbags go off on you. That's fucking
no, I haven't. Not the airbags, but I one time hit a turkey. Going about 60 miles an hour right in the windshield, and its beak the glass didn't completely break, but its like beak was sticking into the I mean, when I hit that thing, it flew up from like the guardrail and I couldn't see it, and when it was coming right at me at the windshield, I was like kind of like getting down but of course it didn't go through the windshield, but I was just boy, that was scary. But what they used to do with us on the state road is when we had to pick up dead deer, they would always wait. They'd wait and let them rot and get really ripe. And
they'd just get them real nice. And then they would
send us out. And so you were supposed to, I mean, the county, driving from one end to the county, one end to the other is maybe like 50 minutes on these back roads and stuff, or maybe an hour. It's not like big out like Nevada, but it's also curvy country dirt road. And so
it's Appalachian. So
and so instead of taking the deer to this one dump site where you had to put lime over them, we would just find, some big holler, some steep hill, 1, 2, 3, chuck it over the hill, right? Well, my buddies, and the rule was, don't get caught. That was the boss's rule of the manager of the state road. Is like, if you throw it over the hill, you can do that, but don't get caught. because you're not supposed to.
Isn't
do
that like the entire story of West Virginia? Like since
Yeah,
it became a state,
it
it's
is.
just like right after it became a state, like all the
Yeah.
logging conglomerates and
Yes.
and the mining conglomerates,
Yeah.
they show up and they're just like, is it legal? Yeah, not really, but
We're gonna do it now.
if you hide it well enough and you keep your workers in line well enough, you know, like it'll work.
Well, what they did with this one deer, my buddies that were working with me on the state road, they went out, they had to go get it. Well, the state road played a trick on them. They called up to the state troop. I was near the state trooper headquarters in the county, and they had the state troopers go out there and take hacksaws and cut off the legs, so you couldn't grab. It was a really rotten foul deer, and you couldn't grab the legs to pick it up. You had to like get in there and like really grab it.
That's a dirty move.
Oh, but it got better. They loaded that up on the back of like the little of the truck. You know, they had like a little deer rack there, and they of course found a holler, and they're like, well, let's just chuck it over the hill here. You know, like, God, this is so nasty. I've got like maggots and all this crap. It's summer. It's nasty. So they get this deer off, and they're trying to chuck it over the hill. And the person who owns that land drives by right when they're chucking it over the hill.
Oh, no.
And it goes down this steep ravine rolling, and the owner made them go get that deer and carry that back up the hill. And I mean, those boys came in and they had blood and just shit all over. It was so nasty. But that was a hell of a prank to cut those legs off. I mean,
that's dirty pool.
It was dirty.
Oh, that's gross.
Oh man, I was so glad. I was so thankful that I did not get that call, and that was not me, because it just, I would have put on the Tyrex, dude. I don't care. It would have been terrible.
You know, it was company policy when I worked for. Well, they're just Five Rivers now. They were Five Rivers feeders, and then they were JBS Five Rivers, and then JBS turns out it's a little bit corrupt, and yeah. So now they're Five Rivers again. But when I was working there at Grant County, there was a stretch where our normal guy that ran the dead wagon was on vacation, so I had to do that, and it was policy that everything got necropsied, everything, even if it was an obvious bloat, and this was middle of July, and there was a couple of those, I'd stick the knife in them to let the gas down, and you're just like, nope, that's a bloat. I don't give a fuck. Or you just like they like if you put it down as decomposed, that went as a they interpreted as you didn't call it in the day before, and so then they gave it as a missed opportunity on your report card or whatever you want to call it. That is a nasty job. It's not so bad in the fall and the winter and the spring, but man, you get in the dog days of summer and
it is nasty. But I mean, having a meat packing plant in the summer with the gut truck and stuff, when it comes, it is nasty to see that gut truck roll in. But I've kind of gotten used to it a little bit more. But most of our, like the guts and stuff at a meat packing plant, you keep in a cooled environment so you don't have maggots and all the nastiness. But we still dispose of the hides. You used to be able to sell the hides, and this is I would love, we need to do research on this. I know you and I are kind of the same type of, as you say, autistic. But since there's all this like faux leather, fake leather in cars, and it's being pushed, I think, I don't know for a fact, but there's got to be way less demand for leather. And so, we used to be able to sell hides for $25 a hide. And now I pay to just have them disposed of, because it's not worth buying cow hides at our meat packing plant, because we're just small time. And it's like, think about that. It's like, this just goes to a landfill. And I mean, okay, cow hide is going to decompose or whatever, but it's waste management that picks it up. So, it's just going to a landfill.
Yeah.
And if I don't know if it's more economical to produce faux leather or environmentally what it is or what the deal is. But
it seems like that's a big waste.
It does seem like a big waste, and I want to know, is faux leather actually worse for the environment than tanning a cowhide? Because if it is, people, if you want to be environmentally friendly, real leather, because we aren't eating less beef, we're eating more beef as Americans.
Right. So, well, and if you go like all the way back to the old way of tanning hides, all you need is the brain of that animal.
Yeah.
And mix it with some water, and like that's how the Indians like have tanned hides forever.
Man, I watched some YouTube videos on that though, and that looks like a day's work.
I'm sure it is, but like if you want to break it down to the like the most eco-friendly deal, like absolutely. That's all you need. You don't need like some salt and the brain. That's literally it. Salt, water, and the brain.
And I have heard that a brain tanned buffalo robe is the best. Like it's super, if you really work it right, the brain tanning, it makes it really soft and malleable, and it's not like a stiff hide. At least from my research, I've never tried it myself. Maybe I would try it at some point. But it looks, the hides that these people did were awesome. I mean, they were amazing. Probably the fact that they're really skilled too, but
yeah, probably. And yeah, like I'm sure something like that's going to cost you so much money because it's like very intensive. But anyway, how is the packing plant going? Like, we kind of just were up and running when we talked the first time.
So we bought it. I bought it in 2021, February of 2021, and it's been going pretty good. I mean, it was an old plant, so equipment's breaking all the time. I mean, it's an equipment intensive, industry. You have to have a lot of, and it's an expensive one.
That's the one like constant universal truth of equipment is it will break down.
Yeah. Now it's amazing. A lot of this equipment is from the 70s, but it's German made. And I mean, man, the Germans know how to make good shit.
I like we were saying on the last Fence Post Politics, like say what you will about fascism, but it's pretty efficient for a little while until it goes off the rails. But there for a minute, it's
good shit. Yeah.
There for a minute, it's pretty impressive.
So we have these Hollymatic grinders, and they're from the 70s, man, and they run like champs. But hoists are always breaking, just electrical stuff. And so we've gotten to a point where most equipment, we have a backup piece of equipment. So production won't stop. Because before, my rule was if we're shut down for 2 hours trying to fix something, I'm going to send everyone home. Pack up and go home, and we'll pick up the next day. Because we've only got like about 18 employees. But we've gotten to the point where we have a lot of equipment that is backed up. So if something goes down, we roll the spare out. I think we've really turned around the reviews. We're running number 2 in the state in producing in poundage of meat right now. But we're working on. I'm trying to continually improve it because a lot of our business is just local farmers selling their beef custom, and so we're improving. All our meat is vacuum sealed. Our grind is still in tubes, but I'm going to get to a bulker where it comes in the nice brick that's vacuum sealed. And like a really nice color label if you want to pay the money for one. So if you're selling commercial, you can have a really good looking product. So we're doing stuff like that to justify a little bit more premium pricing. And I mean, I think we're killing right now. It's our peak times because, traditionally everyone wants to slaughter in the fall and winter and early spring. And I think we're probably killing, I don't know, we probably kill about what I call 40 beef equivalent a week. So it's 2.5 hogs is worth 1 beef in my world. So we do about 40 beef equivalent a week or so. And we let them all hang. One of the difference is it's a 10-day minimum hang. Now there's some junk beef that comes through that we have to cut at 10 days because, you know,
Yeah.
We have hogs that hang more than the carcass of a beef on occasion. But, you know, I think it's going pretty well, and I got a good supervisor now. So
Good.
We're just doing some reinvestments in the plan. I think we'll have, we're looking at doing 300,000 patties for the school system over the summer this coming year. So yeah, we're just keep trying to grow it.
Awesome. And what are you guys slaughtering? Just hog and beef?
Well, we do my bison, of course.
Oh, right. I forgot about the bison. Yeah,
like, and we do cattle, we do hogs, we do sheep and goats. We did 3 alpacas last year, and we now no longer do alpacas because, first of all, they skin really hard. Everyone hates skinning alpacas at the plants, and when my 2 main butchers and guys that skin are like, we hate doing this. I was like, well, we only do 3 a year, so guess what? I'm gonna ban it now. We don't do alpacas anymore. And like oftentimes what it is it's like a pet alpaca of someone, and they don't know what to do with it, and they want it to be dog food, and we don't only make a little bit of money off that. I was like, this ain't worth it. So
yeah.
But the guys at the plant, they're like, alpaca tastes like ketchup, because after you have the first bite, you'll just drown it in ketchup. It tastes like crap. So we got away from the alpacas.
See, there was that one guy that I had on that who did the mobile butcher deal, and he was talking about alpacas up in, I was like, Oregon. Yeah, it was.
Is that a thing? Do people like alpaca meat up in Oregon?
Well, no. From what it sounded like, is they were selling them as like breeding stock for a long time, and then the alpaca market fell out, and they had nowhere to go with them, so they just butchered them. Well, but
that's kind of what happens. Is people get old, have these alpacas, and then they're like, the lady who wanted us to kill 8 of them that I turned down recently, her husband had died, and she's like, and now I got all these alpacas, and I don't know what to do with it. But you get all kinds of calls. I mean, we had a lady wanting to bring a cow in that had it was a breech birth, and I can't remember the exact details. I think it was like the cow was doing fine, but they hadn't pulled the calf or something, and she wanted to kill the cow. I was like, ma'am, we're not doing that. You need to you're gonna have to take care of that yourself, get somebody who can pull that or whatever, and then if you want to go ahead and call that cow, you can we'll let you bring it in, but we're not gonna have a cow in our knock box with a calf halfway out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's like some Upton Sinclair, the jungle shit.
Like that's exactly what I don't want anyone to see at our plants.
Right. Well, honestly, that's shit that Upton Sinclair talked about in his, in the jungle, like that. And that was the novel. I mean, and like, remember, it was a novel. It was based on true story, but it was also from a socialist union organizer. It was a propaganda piece, but like there was a lot of truth to it.
Yeah.
But that's what like led to a lot of the food safety regulations, which in their truest form are probably a good idea. But when you have the government.
Well, let me give you an example, because we actually did, and I'll just tell this story because I think it goes to probably the right people that understand. But we did get shut down one day last year, which was over some BS. What happened was, so we have a regular inspector that comes to our plant. It's the same guy every day. And
it's USDA inspector, right?
Actually, we're state inspected.
Oh, okay.
But USDA comes into our plant to make sure the state is meeting or exceeding all requirements of the USDA. So we actually had sometimes we have USDA inspectors that come and just check and make sure the West Virginia inspectors are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But our West Virginia inspector, it's great, right? Most of the time, these are a lot of the West Virginia meat and poultry department are kind of like redneck guys. So they kind of are more understanding. They're not out to get you, And I'll say the West Virginia DA has been great to work with. There is one individual though who is a vet, and he came to our plant, and he always looks to write you up for something. Usually he wants something minor, and it's like, okay, whatever.
He's trying to justify his job.
Yeah. Well, he was there, and we had shot. Now Leon, who shoots the beef, we still shoot him with guns at our plant.
Okay.
Shot this cow with a 22 mag. Leon's done this since he was 16, and he's 72. The man,
okay.
He
knows what he's doing.
He's probably killed 100,000 animals at least, by my calculation. I actually sat down one day and kind of messed. I was like, "How many animals?"
See, this is why we're friends, Dan. that is autistic.
It's probably north of 100,000. But I know he's killed at least I think it was 4,000 since the records that I have of the plant. So, but he killed this thing. It dropped in the knock box. We opened up the knock box, and they hoisted it up, and they stuck it to bleed it out, and it was bleeding out. It had almost filled up a whole, partially filled up the plastic barrel that we have to put the blood in. And this inspector he wasn't even on the kill floor. He was in the break room, and he stuck his head out, and then he said, now mind you, the kill floor is noisy. There's hoists running. There's, it's just noisy. It's metal. There's, it reverberates. And there's saws running, splitting saws. And so this guy said he heard this steer do make a vocalization.
Vocalization, man.
And I was like, I have it on camera and everything. I was like, dude, how did it make a vocalization? This thing had almost bled out, and it had a bullet through its head. And he's like, well, I heard it. Well, he wanted to get us on a minor thing, but that turns out that if that's the case and it's already out of the knock box, it's an egregious kill. It's an egregious act. So you have to be shut down. Now, whose cattle do you think we had left to kill that day? We had the deputy commissioner of agriculture of the state's cattle behind that beef. That went down. Now, luckily, he's a cell phone call away for us. So, so anyhow, we were shut down, and they put this little string on our big steel knock box, and it had a tag, and we couldn't kill anything. So we had to write up a report, and I refused to admit any guilt, and I had video footage, and I don't think this guy knew that. So I picked apart his report of all the lies and the times and submitted that. I was like, I made him out. Look, I have video timestamps. This guy's full of it. I was like, the animal was almost bled out when he said he heard the vocalization. What he probably heard was gas release, as you know, or just made it up. And anyhow, we were back and running the next day, but we had to have an official West Virginia DA employee come out. And so it was a Friday, and they're hard to come by on Friday. So actually the deputy commissioner came out, and he was like, you've got to be effing kidding me that I have to cut this string off your knock box in order for you to operate. Why couldn't you do it? And I said, we were just like, listen, this is your department, man. This is what you got to do. But he was really good about it. I mean, he was understanding, and he was like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen. But, it's stuff like that. That's like, that cost me quite a bit of money in just labor and wasted time and crap. And then you look at these big plants where if something happens like that, what if they shut the plant down that feeds New York City for a day? You can bet that I don't give a crap about New York, but you can bet that the people would be calling up that plant in Pennsylvania and being like, you better open that, governor's orders. They've got their beef coming into New York City and feed these people. So when it comes to us, it's like, we don't have any pull, but these bigger plants, if they commit an egregious act, it's like, we'll pay you $5,000, move on. $10,000, whatever.
Yeah.
$250,000 probably wouldn't even care. So
yeah, no, I mean,
it's a different game.
well, shit. You look at that Easter Day deal.
Mm-hmm.
He invoiced him for $265 million of cattle, which most of them didn't even exist.
I love that. That has just had me rolling.
I know, and like I'm kind of rooting for.
They
the
need to
guy.
hire me. Listen, I'm a financial guy for my background, and I was like, I don't know how they must have terrible what we call accounting controls there to allow that to happen. I mean, just incredibly bad.
Oh yeah, like that.
Somebody's getting in trouble for that. I'd love to know who. I'd love to see.
Oh my word! Like somebody was just snoozing for years on end.
God, 250 million. I wonder how much he's doing a year though. I mean, in all honesty, if he was only running maybe like an extra 250 million though, you must be doing like, gosh, you got to be doing several million a year, or
well,
5-10 million. I don't know.
Let's see
How
what
much are you doing?
200 mil. So you're looking at what? Say $3,000 for a fat steer.
Yeah, maybe that's kind of high. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I would think probably good. Well, it depends. I don't know. They're hard to say what they're buying them for, but
yeah. Well, and they were. I mean, he had feedlot, a couple different feedlots. So I mean, he was moving some cattle for sure.
Okay, so I mean, that probably makes sense that he could have slipped that through, but still,
that's a lot of money.
And I mean, over what course of time? I mean, if it was over like 10 years, okay.
It was like 8 years or so, but
so he's getting
it was. Yeah, but it was just like the more money he lost in the commodity market, the more money he had to invoice.
What a guy!
I mean, and I don't know. It's one of those things where like, yeah, he probably deserves to be in prison. Yeah. He probably does. But
I mean, he knows you can't. You kind of have to chuckle a little bit at that.
It couldn't have happened to a better company, you know.
Exactly.
Couldn't have happened to a better victim.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is the plant that I bought used to be the beef provider for, I think Leon told me, 4 grocery stores. And, now it's pretty much mostly custom and then commercial for a lot of farmers that do sell direct to consumer or whatever. And of course, for me, it's all commercial grade. I mean, we actually inspect everything commercially, but so that way we can put the beef carcasses right next to each other and we don't have to space them out for custom and commercial. But so we kill everything under commercial inspection. But I mean, you think about that. It used to provide to like the meat for 4 grocery stores locally. And, they had a buyer that would go out and just buy the cattle at these sales and everything. And I still have kind of, they're not really employed by me or anything, but I have 2 guys that are kind of buyers for me, and I can tell them. I usually have them get hogs for me. And the cattle, I have farmers that I trust, and I just call up now and I can have them try to bring in a fat steer or something. But, it's hard to get good quality, consistent cattle. And, for me, I'm looking at a carcass. I want it to be under 30 months of age, so you don't have to cut the backbone out for mad cow, because then cut the backbone out, it just fucks up your porterhouses and T-bones.
Yep.
And I want it to be under 30 months. I want it to hang. Ideally, it's great if it can hang 800 pounds or a little bit more. But if it hangs 800 and it's really wasty and just super fat, then that's not good either for me.
So that'd be like a Jersey carcass or something like that.
I mean, I like it to be, and then a lot of the beef, we are selling them as custom beef or a half beef to so-and-so. And the thing I've learned is women prefer leaner ground. If women get lean ground, they're happy. And if the men get good steaks, they're happy, but it's hard to get both. Yeah. So we make our customers, if they are going, like, we really encourage them to not grind the ribs, because that adds 10% fat on your ground. But we have a couple guys that can always deliver that carcass in and out, every time they come, it's like spot on. And then sometimes it's a little disappointing, and then other times you get lucky. But so I mean, I do kind of understand where some of these big meat packers are like try to be so particular and everything, as you probably know. I mean, it's
yeah. Well, I mean, it's when you're running that many head through, like that. I mean, you kind of like, when you're moving 5,000 head a day, like that chain's got to be moving all the time.
Oh yeah,
like that's. I mean, you're looking at 800 employees. Total. So I mean, like any shift, you're looking at 250 to 300 minimum, and like, and everybody's got a fucking job. Like it's all assembly line shit. So like, it's one of those things, like, you got, especially in a country this size, and as much beef as we eat,
unreal.
You've gotta have those big packer plants. But they can't have the power that they have now. Like, that's the thing, is they've got so in bed with the government, and this kind of lead into one of like the big, kind of news stories that we haven't really covered on Fence Post Politics yet, but I want to kind of hear your thoughts on it. But the only Republican politician that was listed as getting money from that FTX Sam Bankman-Fried deal was Boozer out of Arkansas, who's also like
he's in
hip pocket with Tyson.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that whole deal? So I guess, I mean, for everybody that doesn't know, FTX was like a crypto exchange platform.
So I mean, essentially, FTX isn't considered an exchange, and it's like the New York Stock Exchange, but really different in the sense, or a currency exchange or whatever. But it's really different in the sense that, there's a couple different things I would say that makes it unique. For one, it was a private company, I believe. So it wasn't traded on the exchange or on the stock market. So
I don't think so. I don't believe so.
Coinbase is. So yes. Coinbase is another exchange, and it's traded on the stock market. And so they're actually
Cash App same way. Cash App, they only do Bitcoin.
Is they actually are regulated by the Securities Exchange Commission. So that does mean that they have to have a regular financial audit. So I used to be a financial auditor for public accounting, and we went into various companies. I mainly did hospitals. But, you go in there and you make sure that they're doing the right thing, and it goes through compliance to HR to all the way to like making sure their finances are squeaky clean. FTX was private company, so they didn't have any of that. But it seems to me, and I did not really know much about FTX until this whole thing blew up. I actually have used Coinbase to buy Bitcoin myself, but they weren't really under the regulation of the Securities and Exchange Commission, as far as I know, because they weren't a publicly traded company. They probably had to have some sort of, I don't know if anyone was really regulating them or looking into them. And I'm against regulations, kind of, but I do think that it's public accounting when you do. And by the way, public accounting firms are actually privately owned, so it's a little misleading. But I did was oftentimes private companies required a financial audit so their creditors could feel good about their loans outstanding with that company. And so I do think that there's a couple different things that really were crazy to hear. So what is it, that Chamath guy who's a big rich pundit now, financial, like he was early in on Google or something. Well, I guess they had Sam Bankman-Fried, who was the founder of FTX, had asked this Chamath guy, was like, hey, do you have recommendations? Can you give me some recommendations? And it just blows my mind. He said, yeah, you should have a board of directors. So that way the board of directors is kind of representative of the stakeholders or shareholders of the companies, and they oversee management to make sure management isn't doing shady shit or supposed to.
Yeah.
Well, Sam Bankman-Fried told Chamath, I think the quote was, fuck off.
Yeah, something like
literally said, or something like that.
Yeah,
and
it was like, either fuck off or go fuck yourself. One of the two.
Yeah, or go fuck yourself, and is what he said. And I was like, yeah, that was a red flag. And
like a huge red flag.
But this thing, I mean, you've got to ask yourself. I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried does not look like particularly charismatic. And from what I've heard is he's not. And his girlfriend, like in an interview, was talking about, not putting stop losses on their investments, which that's like when you're an investor. And I used to do some like options trading and some different things like that. If you heard somebody say that and you actually are in finance, you're like, this broad doesn't know what the F she's talking about. Like, get away, run away.
Yeah.
And so there were signs out there, and I never had looked into FTX until this whole thing blew up. I kind of heard of them a little bit, but I didn't really.
Yeah, same here. Like, because I try to like kind of somewhat be halfway informed. Not even that. Like I have interest in the crypto deal.
Yeah.
But I'm still just, I'm not sure what gives it any actual value. That's the thing for me, is like, I don't know what gives it value.
Yeah. So I'm kind of the same way. And I was a finance, accounting, and risk management insurance major in college. And I'm also a CPA, so I'm not given legal advice.
Did you go to West Virginia, or where did you go to school at?
I went to Marshall University, so down in Huntington, right there near Kentucky.
We are?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
And so like a lot of my buddies are in finance, and one of them's a bank regulator, and one of them's works in banking. And we've talked a lot about this, and my bank regulator friend's like, well, we just need regulations, more regulations. I'm like, yeah, but we always just regulate for something that happened in the past, and then there'll be something new. And so I don't know what the real answer is, but I would say this, and I am invested in crypto on Coinbase. I don't invest much. Like, if I lost all my investment, I wouldn't even think much about it. And my thing is, like, don't invest heavily in stuff you don't know about.
Right.
I think a lot of people, I knew some people who had quit their jobs and were just trading currency. And I guess, I don't know, but Coinbase, it's not like you're doing like day trading on it.
No.
It was my understanding, like, people were straight up kind of like what I would consider like day trading on it.
Yeah.
And they were highly levered, meaning they had borrowed money to trade it. And I think those people got really burned and could be in for some, trouble themselves, just for, having to pay off their margin call and stuff.
And
money. And I feel bad.
Well, and they were like written into their user agreement is like the investors in FTX. So like they weren't investing in the company itself, but they were investing on the platform.
Yeah.
Like, part of the user agreement is that could not be borrowed against. And they went ahead and they loaned it out to a hedge fund.
That's the biggest. Anyone who any exchange, you cannot take exchange money, which is not your money. It's not even like they were borrowing against it. They were just literally, as far as I can tell, which and what's been reported is they were taking users' money and then giving it to Alameda, which was also Sam Bankman-Fried's hedge fund, but was run by his like drugged up and amphetamine addicted
polyamorous girlfriend.
And she is dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, maybe she's just so drugged up. She's like that dumb. But I mean, her dad, is the head of economics at MIT. I mean, this thing reeks. Like, my thing is like, okay, Sam Bankman-Fried, I'm not convinced he could pull this off alone.
Yeah. This is like
charismatic enough. He doesn't seem connected enough, him personally, himself, to pull this off. And if we're going to talk conspiracy theories, we can time to open now.
I was gonna say, yeah, that we'll get into that, but like, all right, so take a Mark Cuban, Elon Musk, say even like, you know, Donald Trump, Jack Dorsey. Like, Jack Dorsey's not a good example because he's not particularly charismatic, but like Elon Musk, super charismatic billionaire. Like, he's got a billion irons in the fire. And despite of what all the people that claim they're gonna quit Twitter because of Elon Musk, they're still on there, and they're still claiming that Twitter is dying. But in the meantime, he's reporting like record user growth.
Yeah,
and Tesla, like, which is supposed to have died like 19 times already, is still going strong. Starlink, which was supposed to never get off the ground, like
we have a boat.
And he's constantly shooting more. Yeah, and he's constantly shooting more satellites up in the air. And this is easily, like, not even a close second, the best rural broadband there is.
There's nothing even close to it.
Nothing in the same sport, let alone the same like class. You know, like not even in the same fucking sport.
It's like having Aaron Judge play T-ball. It's not even
like
close.
He's crushing it, and so like, yeah, the Sam Bankman-Fried, and like I'm gonna do some research on him and watch all these latest interviews, because he did an interview with George Stephanopoulos, and then he did one with the New York Times, and they're like, this is the thing that gets me, is like they're trying to like massage his image, instead of like calling him out for like exactly what he did, which is stole a bunch of people's money, using the same method that our banking system is built on. Like, what he's doing is fractional reserve banking.
It was like fractional reserve exchanging or something. I don't know what to even call it, but I just, you have to ask yourself, like, I think it was on, what was it? I think it was on Part of the Problem with Dave Smith, where him and Dave and Robbie were talking about crypto, and there's some pretty interesting points brought up. And I guess we should just probably say this, but on the podcast, in case anyone is getting into crypto, but I feel like Bitcoin seems fairly legit, as far as I can tell. And I don't know how people feel about Ethereum. I don't own any Ethereum. But then there is, what is the third largest? I don't even buy. I've never bought it. But there's
like Dogecoin, and then there's
what was it?
I can't remember.
Okay, so like several US-backed rebel groups, their official currency is what is it? It's their official currency is this crap. It's let me look it up here real quick on Coinbase. I don't think you can buy it on Coinbase, but maybe they have a sticker on it. But yeah, it's apparently rebel groups that are backed by the United States. This is their official way of transacting. And there's people arguing that there's people arguing that the CIA, and like, this is all, I don't think it's founded yet. So, but people are arguing that the CIA is using this crypto to fund rebel groups, so it's untraceable back to the United States.
You know what? It's not a
again, just different tech.
It's not a bad theory, because All right. So if you remember right before, I guess it was right at 9/11. I think it was like the day before or something like that, maybe on 9/11.
Yeah.
The Pentagon released their audit and they were missing like $2.5 trillion. And this is, remember, this is in 2001 dollars, $2.5 trillion unaccounted from the Pentagon. There was an audit here just the other day that was like $3.5 trillion unaccounted for from the Pentagon. There are reports, not just reports, but like this is, and I don't have I guess I could look it up here, but Ukraine, the country of Ukraine, invested heavily in FTX.
Oh yeah,
and FTX paid out millions and millions to Democratic politicians and one on the record Republican politician, John Boozer out of Arkansas, who, like I said, is
he's dirty.
He is so gross.
I mean, the dude's name's Boozer. What do you expect?
Yeah, but he doesn't even spell it right. It's with the S.
But
so he's like a lame boozer.
But it's Tether. And the difference about Tether, this crypto that people are alleging the CIA is flooding money through to rebel groups, is apparently it's not, so to speak, decentralized. And the person who is the face of it, I forget the name of him, but he's like a disgraced Disney child star that got in trouble for child pornography or something.
Oh,
and now
cool.
and now he's like the face of Tether, and people are saying like this could be the next FTX thing. So probably stay away from Tether. Seems to have, there's stuff coming out about it that seems highly suspect, to say the least.
So this is from the Brave search deal. And it's Ukraine FTX.
Oh yeah.
Blah blah blah. Down here, so Sam Bankman-Fried addresses bankruptcy. Ukraine-based blockchain firm blasts fake news. No evidence to support FTX laundering Ukraine. No evidence to support FTX laundering Ukraine aid money. Fall of FTX creates conspiracy theories about Ukraine. Fact check: no, U.S. aid to Ukraine wasn't laundered by. So the fact that there's so many just like, no, fact checked already, I don't buy it. This all seems like a CIA setup.
Okay. I mean, there's literally, there's just so many ways to funnel money and channel money, and for anyone to think that they actually know, nobody knows. Do you have access to all the records and servers and have tracked all this funds? Like I did briefly for a while forensic accounting, and it takes to just figure out where funds are flowing to and who's behind it and stuff takes forever. And the cases that I worked on was like, man's divorcing wife and he's hiding money, and so we have to figure out based off all these transactions where it's going, what accounts he's got, blah blah blah. And that would take sometimes almost a year. So like to think that there's somebody that's, it could take an army of accountants down there, forensic accountants, to figure out what's what. And that's assuming that they have access to everything and they're going to be allowed to have access, and it's going to be transparent and they're going to go after this. So, we may never actually really know where all the money was coming from and flowing from and going.
No. Guaranteed we never will. But let's, I got to take a leak. We'll come back and do like 20 minutes on,
okay. Holy crap.
On the same deal. What's that?
I said time's flying by.
I know it. So anyway, I got some questions on this Alex Jones deal. Speaking of hiding money, so we'll do that like Patreon only.
Okay.
All right. Move your ass. We're burning daylight.
down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horse is kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Is just a gather, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right.